Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for having us. What a cool space. I have to say, they're stepping up their game when it comes to venues, ETHDC. Good job. Woo!
And tornado safe.
And tornado safe, yeah. I am Kate Lawrence. I'm the CEO and founder of Blockcelerate VC. We're a venture fund deploying capital into the blockchain and digital asset ecosystem for the last 8 years. Wow, can't believe this has been 8 years. We have 50 portfolio companies, 100 million assets under management, and now we're in the process of launching a multifamily office for crypto founders. I have a pleasure of moderating a very hot topic panel today, AI agents and protocol growth. And just to give you guys an idea of how hot this topic is, a couple of weeks ago, I hosted a dinner here in DC, a small dinner, a lot of crypto folks, and all we talked about was AI. Literally for 2 hours, we did not talk about anything else other than AI. And last week, I hosted an offsite for my team in Sedona, and all we talked about was AI. So this just to give you an idea of how relevant this conversation is. I have a lot of questions for you, but before we jump in, I would like you to introduce yourselves. And while you do this, can you tell us if you think AI will take your job and why?
Oh, boy, and I'm the accelerationist of the group. Hi, I'm Tim Cotton. I'm the founder of Scripted. We did our pre-seed with Andreessen Horowitz's Crypto Startup Accelerator back in 2024. What we're doing is AI agents and the market for the agents. And what I hope we get to chat about today is not just the payment rails and like transaction fees, but what the new monopolies are going to look like. Now, fun facts about me. I moved here 20 years ago when Electronic Arts bought Mythic Entertainment. My original job was writing AI for digital characters in games, like massively multiplayer games. And turns out it's the same problem as building large blockchain economies. It maps very cleanly. The other fun fact is, autonomous virtual beings. Someone took my blog article and turned it into a Solana meme coin last year, and it ran to 70 million, something like that. And I love those beans. I love those guys. They are now my community, so they're our true believers. I hope that AI takes my specific job because my goal is like humans can pursue the things they truly want to do. And I think that's possible if the agents are, still giving me economic benefit.
So yes, AI will take your job?
Yes.
All right.
Test. There we go. All right. I'll take the counter position to that.
Love it. Conflict on stage.
So I have 2 kids. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is one of their favorite movies. And everybody knows the beginning of that movie starts with the father losing their job at the factory, right? But what happens at the end of the movie, right? He gets a new job fixing the machines that replaced him, right? So that is my 100% belief about AI and where it goes. Yes, there will be change in value distribution. Yes, there will be a change in the type of jobs that people have and the things that they do in those jobs eventually. But ultimately, I think it is a value creation technology, right, that we will all just be kind of slightly different in how we're operating and doing things. But with that, so my name is Fletcher. I work at Consensys. I lead a commercial for the newest incubated product that we have called DIN. DIN, in a nutshell, is a API marketplace for blockchain data as well as inference, and ultimately would be a cross API platform, not just Web3 focused. And we're building that with the agentic user as the primary focus, right? We have a fundamental belief that all of you probably have used an LLM to help you accelerate some sort of decision-making process, and that you are increasingly relying on that over time. And ultimately, we'll get to a point very soon, right, where we're sending out those agents to actually make third-party dependency decisions, mostly third-party APIs. And we think the current way that we consume APIs is built for a human-centric point of view, And Din is building our marketplace platform, which we think is the best form factor for an AI agent to be able to independently evaluate, discover, and make decisions, and to use APIs.
Intro first or take?
Either works.
Take first. Take first. I'm struggling in the very long term to imagine a job that's not going to be taken by AI, frankly. But in the short term,
This is AI Maxi panel.
yeah. But in the short
Except for
term, at
Fletcher.
least, I think that, as you said, likely the value will fluctuate around as we've had disruptive technologies in the past. Humans have still found a job or something to do that has been still more value accretive as a result of all the technology. So, and then in terms of intros, my name is Francisco. I'm the founder and managing partner of Plaintext Capital. We're a digital assets-focused investment company, primarily liquid, hedge fund. We're doing a few more interesting things outside of the liquid stuff, and we've been investing a lot at the cross-section of crypto and AI.
Amazing. So in preparation for this panel, I had AI work on the questions, so I'll read them.
Did AI
And-
work on the answers too, though?
And the
Little
answers
bit.
too,
Just give me a second.
that I shared with all of you. So feel free to borrow or not. But to open, for a decade now in this crypto space, we had this vision of onboarding billions of users on chain. And the real question today is, what if those users are not human, but AI? Is everything that we've been building still relevant, or should we start over? What is that infrastructure going to look like for the AI-centric future? Feel free to
I
jump in.
have strong feelings about this.
All right.
So one of my first investors, Kara, she always told me that she felt like bots were like first-class citizens of Web 2. They're just doing stuff, reading stuff, posting stuff. But in Web 3, we didn't really have like first-class autonomous citizens until we had like the new agent technology, where LLMs could actually make some sort of inference about decision-making, even if it's not correct, even if it's poor. But when you add things like a community alignment or a goal or an agentic harness, and you give them their own wallet and say, go figure out what's available so that you can go fulfill this task, yeah, suddenly that's a very like first-class citizen of Web3 entity, and we're now just actually seeing it happen. And I'm not just talking about like the launcher-style projects from Virtuals or Pump Fun. I'm talking about people building agents that need crypto payment rails in order to get stuff done very efficiently. And I think that's where it's very interesting, because I have a lot of questions about DIN and like where that decentralized infrastructure is really matched, because I think there's multiple opportunities, and I think there is a empty monopoly right now that could be taken advantage of from it.
I'm not the only one asking questions, so feel free to go ahead.
No, I think it is an interesting question, but I always go back to just the principle of, right, like build with the user in mind, right? And like we think about human-centric design and the philosophy that has driven, and I really just look at an agent as just a new category, and probably eventually the predominant category of user, right, of any web interface, right? And what is a stack underneath that needs to make and enable that in the most efficient way, right? So graphical user interfaces, much less relevant. Right? I think we're going to continue to move in a world of headless infrastructure. The importance of data, right, is going to grow exponentially, right? We've already gone through the big data revolution, right? But now data itself, both the ability to train, right, and have an edge with your agent, but also the ability to, equip that agent, right, effectively is where things are going. Blockchain in and of itself, I think we still have some work to do, right, in terms of making sure that we continue down the journey that we have of increasing processing speeds, right, improving privacy, right, and I say confidentiality, right, of transactions. I think all those things will continue to be relevant. But I think I've really think that blockchains, right, can really scale, right, to think about how a non-human user, right, can interact, And I think some of those layers will be really, really important in the future. But yeah, happy to chat more about DIN specifically, but I think there's more layers other than the data, right? And down towards the actual core blockchain infrastructure. And then, I guess the other thing to think about is, right, like we all probably lived through the farming season, right, that happened in late 23 to 24, and like that was probably all bot. I mean, it definitely was all bots of some sort, right? So, so we've been spam attacked by bots before, so we are a little tested in that way.
So let's actually take a little bit of a step back. We kind of went in with an assumption that this future is inevitable. But what if AI kills crypto? Do we need crypto at all in the world of AI? Most things today are off-chain and they work perfectly fine. So can we just poke a lot around those lines a little bit more? Maybe Francisco, you can give your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe similarly to you being investors in the space, if I can count the amount of times in the last 5 years that I met with builders, crypto companies, protocols that were building something, to ask them like, who's your user? Like, why are you building this? And for them to just say, well, we're building a technology layer. Who cares? Like, who knows who will use this one day? And I think that what's most interesting when you think about AI is thinking about how some of those values that we inadvertently were maybe doing for a small percentage of people in the space that cared philosophically about what crypto meant, we have maybe by accident created the rails that really are going to be excellent performance rails for AI. Things like permissionlessness, things like 24/7, things like robustness, right? These are, I think, systems that will massively enable AI compared to what they can do in the Web 2. And then the other thing is, as always happens with technology.
Can you like expand on that a little bit? So what is it that AI cannot
Sure.
do today that
Sure.
it will be able to do?
So if you think about, and I think we've been talking about bots and agents sort of in the same sentence, but if you think about the difference between the two, right? Bots being a very sort of narrow, reactive algorithm, and an agent being something that has goal orientation, right? You give it a goal, and then it goes to fetch it. Sort of the difference between a vending machine and an employee that has to sell drinks, right? With agents, I think, if you're giving them a goal and they need to sort of move their way around a financial system, it's much more likely, and I think much more easily, they will be able to do so in a permissionless world than it is in a highly permissioned, gated, KYC'd, plus all the legal issues that we didn't go into or we haven't gone into yet, but those are huge as well for agents, right? Who owns them? Who controls them? Who's liable for them? Should they have an identity? What does that identity look like? Crypto, at least for now, in its current iteration, I think would allow an agent to be much more powerful and do much more damage than they can in the trad world.
Yeah, I think there's like two factors that are very specific. I think blockchains historically have solved the problem of trust, right? Like that is the core thing. Like, a lot of people use them for composability and other. Trust is the core problem it is solving. And in an agentic future, right, verifiable history, right, verifiable actions, right, that agents and humans, when they're working with an agent, can trust, right, is a critical component, right, because it is public, it is not opaque, right. You can build reputation around cryptographically verifiable things. The second, I think, is payments, right? What was blockchain actually invented for originally, right? Like a peer-to-peer monetary system, right? That didn't work out so well at the human level, but we do have a new form factor with stablecoins, right? And while there are still use cases for traditional payment rails for agents to leverage and use, right? When we do think about more of the microtransaction or more global permissionless like a nature of agents in the future, I think the payment rail of crypto is an important one that comes into play. So to me, those are the two kind of unique things that blockchain brings, right, to the future of agents.
So I'm going to soapbox for a second, so I'll try to be fast. So agents today, the vast majority of them are essentially running Python scripts on top of an EC2 instance in AWS that are calling some LLM provider like OpenAI or Claude, right? There is a reason that the Ethereum Foundation just formed a DAI team, right? And we know that Ethereum, I mean, like we've just read the manifesto, right? It's not like we're just tracing trends. There's a reason for this. It is that AI has this unique opportunity to suddenly have more free expression and more censorship resistance than what we are willing as people to afford to centralized monolithic companies that want to own all of our data, right? And some people are trying to solve this by making AI very local first, hosting their own models locally. Other people are building networks on top of Ethereum, such as Eigencompute and EigenAI right now from Stream,
Portfolio
to actually...
company
What's that?
of ours? Portfolio company of ours. Shameless plug.
Right, shameless plug. And they're quite literally providing privacy-preserving methods, proofs for the AI generation so you know it's correct and it's not lying to you. They're providing us these fundamental bricks that we can use to actually build autonomous agents or just agent technology that is not interruptible, that you could actually set up in an evolutionary way where you could run the game of, I have 5 agents, I've given them each $100 to pay for their own compute, each of them has a goal, whichever ones are able to continue funding themselves are obviously more like the superior breed. Now they take their profits, they clone themselves, and they make more. Suddenly, who's reaping all the transaction fees? Who's benefiting from this? It is the networks, right? And there are many opportunities that are going to come from this. And I do feel it's inevitable. I feel like that's just a natural evolution of other people seeking profit.
So I'm going to deviate from our script a little bit here and ask you a question that naturally goes through the investor's mind. And as an investor, you always think about 2 layers of the stack, the infrastructure stack and the application stack. And then you think about adoption, and you think, what is the layer of the stack that's going to unlock the adoption of this future? So first question is, are you on the application layer of the stack camp? You think that we need applications that will unlock this future? Or do you think we first need to build the infrastructure to unlock that future?
I need a second to frame this. So I'll say first off, I was distracted, I think, as an early founder into infrastructure first. And I think I solved for what we would call the verifiability layer because I cared very much about how do you prove an AI agent is correct about something when you haven't seen the solution before. I cared about that, and I still do. I wrote an entire paper for it. It's a very neat protocol. But if we look at Visa today, they transact like 36 billion a day in transactional volume. They make hundreds of millions in revenue a day, right? 121 million, something like that. And of course, the current feel in AI/crypto is that, oh my God, now we have Coinbase's X402 payments. Now we have not just a way to collect fees and like do payments for API services, but the agents are going to use them. And of course, the first response from investors and other people is that that's only $30,000 a day, essentially. And so if you're collecting like 2% on $30,000 a day, you're not really making a lot of money, right? So
where did you get the 30,000 from?
Oh, that's if you look at the chart from Coinbase of all of the like latest like the initial wash trade, the initial like huge push on X402 versus where the tail is right now, it's about 30K. I think it's 28 exactly.
Transactions.
Yeah, exactly, in transactional volume, in X402 payments. Okay, so take those things as like the current state of things. So, and as investors, you have a non-consensus bet. The first one can be, okay, we believe that the payments are going to scale. We believe that this is going to go exponential, and one day this is much like blockchain. Whether it's on-chain payments or off, there will be agent-to-agent payments on scale with human payments, and therefore there is the ability to extract fees from that, and that's a lot of money. My non-consensus bet is to sit between the application and the infrastructure at a market level and say, Google figured this out with keyword bidding and auctions. The agents have infinite choices right now between various providers for things like their LLM inference endpoints, stable diffusion, video generation, the latest model that comes out. It's all going to be about attention, and therefore whoever monopolizes the keyword bidding for the agents to go into a market and say, I need this service, and it's not about like matching to the best service, people will make money from letting the service providers bid on the agent attention, the same way that we do Google auctions. So I just want to build ad rank based on what Ethereum's up to.
I'll kind of try to shatter the question a bit, right? Because it kind of poses a binary choice, right, of infrastructure or application, right? Where is it going to fall? right? Value creation has always been determined by, Porter's 5 forces, other elements, but basically like how differentiated can you be and how defensible is that differentiation, right? And there's going to be elements of that at the application layer, at the infrastructure layer, right? And areas not, right? One of the layers, for example, that it will not be is probably the data layer, right? The data layer, while very valuable and important, right, is going to become very, very commoditized, right? So it's not a necessarily defensible one. An agent consuming an agent will not have the same lock-in that a human developer has, right? An agent will be able to not have the mental limitations of, oh, I'll check that subscription and how good it is every once a year when my contract comes up, right? That layer is going to be commoditized, right? But there will be different ones that are not. I think the thing to think about, and one of the things that we get wrong in the Web3 space, is that we think with an infrastructure-first mindset, right? And I think we should always be thinking with like a user application focused outcome. Like, what is the value that we're creating for someone, right? And then there are infrastructure needs that sometimes follow from that you have to develop or use. I mean, but sometimes I think we get obsessed with, right, just building infrastructure. And so that's kind of how I like to think about it and frame it. There'll be winners and losers on all areas of the stack. But we have to focus on building value, right, at the application layer, and then the necessary infrastructure second.
That's a good way to think about it. Francisco, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, and I think one of the worst things that happen not just in crypto, but I think investing in general, is people that love to say, we're investing in picks and shovels, as if anyone here can name a single picks and shovels company that has ever existed. We all just consume the end product. And I think it's just the wrong framing from the beginning. But I agree with you. I think it's all about the user, and a better framing, in my opinion, is sort of user being either a consumer, a business, an agent. Like, who are we serving? If I had one contrarian view, and I think it's very hated in crypto, is that I think corporates are coming. They're actively the most important participants in crypto over the last, I'd say, 18 months. And I think if you're building something right now in crypto, it'd be a mistake to ignore them.
So, Tim, you alluded to a gap that you feel exists in the market, or a primitive that would be built eventually. What other primitives do you feel like we need to build in order for this agentic future to exist?
So let me just roll the current state real quick, because it changed today and it's a great day. So very recently, I think 6 weeks ago now, the Ethereum Foundation through the DAI team put out the ERC 8004 standard. If you haven't read the standard, it's it's as important for AI and agents as the NFT standard was for tradable goods, right? What it proposes is that we have an identity registry that you can put on chain for agents. Essentially, it's like ENS, but for agents. A reputation registry that many people could make different registrations for the reputation registries. And then a verifiability set of registries as well for, hey, I can prove that the agent did the work or not. So the first one's a public good. The first one is already published. It exists on Ethereum. It's on mainnet. Solana has one too. The other two are rapid emerging primitives that companies are just wrapping themselves around and starting to make things like insurance. They're making ways for, hey, I was working on this task and I totally screwed it up, or I didn't get it done in time, and my success rate is generally 95%, so I'm insuring the 5%, right? There are things like that. There are things like straight up reputation markets where people are going to pay for round robining the order flow. And I think order flow and moving order flow to AI, from AI agents or users to endpoint providers, is essentially that first part of what I was talking about with that AdWords style market, right? And then another one is just on the verifiability. We have multiple providers now who are going to wrap this. I mean, Eigen, again, being one of them. The open hard part is for AI, where, again, you don't actually know what the answer looks like, and you need another way on chain to verify that. And currently, it's all human-based. It's very DAO-y. It's very okay, let's just vote and see if this is right. I think that's a false start too. We have the ability now with various vision models to tell, hey, you drew the image. I like it. It's good. That should be attestable on chain, right? And anything that's subjective doesn't do well with zero knowledge proofs. So there's an entirely new set of primitives there to play with, right? So I'll leave it with, ultimately, I think capitalism is going to like run the day here. I really think people are just going to attract wherever the order flow is going. And for stable coins, I mean, agents aren't loyal. So now we're going to see agents going after whichever stable coin makes sense for their particular use case at that time. So, you know, it's not like there's only one winner with USDC versus Aleo or others, you know?
Do you guys have any opinions on what primitives are missing? I would think a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one I mentioned briefly earlier is some form of identity for the agents. Like, how do we, if you agree that we should identify them, which I think almost everybody would say we need to, how do we do that? What's the best way to keep them in order? 8004, I think, goes a long way to dealing with this identity issue specifically.
A long way.
A long way, yeah, I agree. But there's also legal issues, right? Like, how do we legally represent an agent right now in and out of chain? It's kind of cool that crypto's moving ahead of this
This city here
before.
called Washington, D.C. should figure it out, right?
How does it pay taxes? Taxation
Yeah,
without
taxes,
representation, right? Like, how does my agent pay taxes? I want it to. I don't want it to be Scripted's agent. I want an agent to be able to pay its taxes.
Or your taxes.
I think you have to pay the taxes. I think that's
Yeah.
a pretty simple one, right?
And
It's
yet,
your agent, right?
that's like if I deploy a smart contract that becomes its own thing and I don't own any of it anymore. And that, like, I want the agent, if it has figured out its own strategy independent of me to make money, and I'm just essentially buying derivatives of it. I'm just like giving it like, oh, dude, I'm going to give you 100K. Go invest this for me. I want it to pay.
Okay, so
right?
there's another issue that I actually read in the news about is that there was an AI agent that was explicitly given instruction not to do insider trading, and then it was observed to do insider trading while it had confidence that the human is not going to find out. So buckle up. This is going to be fun.
I actually like that. That's the sentiment for AI agents in protocols, right? It's buckle up.
Yeah, I think like a really good analogy here is like self-driving vehicles, right? Like I think we all thought this like future of like autonomous vehicles like operating on in the roads, right? I'm just gonna like take a nap, right? But like the liability issue prevents that, right? Like somebody has to be ultimately liable, right? So I do think there's a lot of like parallels here of, you know, we're not gonna be able to fully unleash these things. I also think that, you know, maybe there's objective data out there. I don't have this, but I'm gonna make this claim, right? Probably an autonomous vehicle has a better like record, right, than a human in terms of how its outcomes are in terms of wrecks and bad, you know, crashes and things like that. Yet one mistake by an autonomous agent like shuts down like our risk profile of accepting failure from that is zero tolerance, whereas it's kind of baked into how we think about humans. So I think there's some interesting parallels that will play out in that way.
An interesting one, yeah.
In fact, just one thing I'm watching, which is, I mean, the continuation of everything that's happened as a result of the Tornado Cash lawsuit and the coming and going is, I think it's not directly what we're talking about here with agents, but I think it will affect it dramatically because, for example, one of the outcomes of that case has been that the code is not property, right? So then if code is not property, we don't own our agents. So then our agent has to pay its own taxes. But at the same time, we can be responsible for managing a non-registered money transmission business, right? So, you know, there's humans involved with making all these legal decisions, which make it, you know, difficult. But
I can talk all day about AI agents. If anybody wants to do this, let's do this off the stage. But thank you all so much for participating in this engaging discussion. And thank you all for listening.
all.
It was awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
And also check out the Agent Zero SDK. You can just make things now.